Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayede. I'd like to say a special welcome to the new listeners that we had last week because I can see from the stats here that we've had an uptick. So I'd like to say thank you guys for coming on board, and I trust you're going to have a real eventful time here, and I'll do my best to bring you helpful tips, tricks, and recommendations that we can use to grow our businesses as wedding industry event professionals. And if you don't happen to be a wedding industry person, so whether you're in construction, whether you work with banking, or even if you're a civil servant, just hang around because you're going to find useful things here that you can use to grow your business or your career. And for those of you who listen from the link that I post on social media, on that's the link to the Anchor link where this episode is hosted. Have no fear. You can also find me on your regular podcast catchers, whichever one that you use. You'll be able to find the show there. Just search for Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast, or you can use my name, Tavishima Ayede. You can search for that. That's an easier way to find the podcast if you're using apps like, what's it called? Is it Speakercast? I can't remember the name. Anyway, let's just say that there's some podcast catchers that you use where if you search Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast, it won't come up. But if you search my name, it will come up. Okay, so enough with the introductions. Let's go straight to the agenda for today. This is going to be the last episode from the ideas that I got from the 2 cold calls that I received from the banking professional about 2 weeks ago, and from the fellow who wanted to sell agricultural services to the to our second company, which is Dove Agro Seeds, which is more agro related and export related. So so let me explain some terms. Now, when I say cold call, the idea behind a cold call in the traditional sense is you are calling on strangers, whether you walk up to their house, you meet them at the mall, or you pick up the phone or send an email. The bottom line is that it's a cold call if the person that you're reaching out to doesn't know who you are, has no context for the call, and likewise, you have very little idea about who they are, and there hasn't been any prior introduction or interaction to warm up this present point in time when you're reaching out to them. And that has been the point of all the discussions that we've had so far on whether you should talk to strangers to drum up your business and what the best way of doing that should be. And so now that we're done with all the preliminaries, we can get straight to the final part, which is on how to close the call. When you reach out to someone for the first time, and not just when you reach out to someone for the first time, if you've had multiple interactions and you're coming close to the end of this current interaction where you might pick up a check, whether they might send you a deposit, and then you're going on to the execution stage. But most especially when you're dealing with strangers, I would say in this case, because we should always be looking for more potential customers to call. So I think a good stage to include here should be looking for referrals and recommendations. Basically, you should close off the call by asking, do you know anyone who might be interested in ... Fill in the blank on the services that you provide. Now, you don't have to ask that way exactly. Find your own verbiage. Find what works for you. But it is a good habit to have. Now, if you remember, the fellow who called me from Sterling Bank, the reason why he called was because an associate of mine or a family member had left my number with him saying that this person is involved in so and so business, and so because of that, I think he could use the services that you guys offer. It might be useful financing for him, and that's the reason why he reached out to me. And even though it was still a cold call, because I had no knowledge of him prior to that, and the context for the call, it immediately warmed it up that, oh, Uncle so and so dropped my number, and this is the reason why. And because of that, I was willing to hear him out. Now, he didn't close the call that way. I'm assuming he's going to make that ask when I open up the account with them eventually. The whole point of closing the call this way, asking for referrals and recommendations, is because it gives you, it enhances your credibility the next time you have to call a total stranger. So in my own case, let's say Uncle Manson is the one who dropped my number with them, and he calls me, and he called me. So the reason why I lent him my ear is because I know Uncle Manson, I trust him, and so if Uncle Manson says this is a good dude to talk to, at least I can do is spare him a couple of minutes and find out what's the purpose of the call. And so that's the whole thing. And so if he does that eventually, and I see that they're legit and that their financing options do work for wedding-related businesses, and he asked me the question, I could say, yeah, sure, call up my friend Mark. He's just starting wedding photography, and these kinds of facilities might also help him out in his business as well. And it's something that is going to lend him personal credibility when he does pick up the phone to call Mark, because he will say, hello, Mark, I got your number from Tavishima. Tavishima says you're into this wedding space, and you might require these kinds of financing services because Tavishima has used them and he has found them to be really helpful in growing his business. Would it be okay if we have 5 minutes to chat? And then they're going to have a conversation based upon that. Now, the fellow who called from Abia State, I think, or Delta State, he didn't make that ask, but it's something he should have. Just as good sales practice that, okay, sorry for taking up your time, and we couldn't do any business today. However, do you know anyone in your own line of business who is looking for people sourcing from Abia? Now, currently, I do not know anyone. But the thing is, I might have, and I could have given him that information. And sometimes sales is a matter of putting the odds in your favor. And so he could increase his chances of getting in touch with someone who could use him as a supplier in their agro business if he just keeps asking that question. Because eventually you're going to be on to one person who knows someone from Abia State who could be looking for such a supplier and will be able to pass you on to another and another, and you could get repeat long-term sustainable business this way. So how does this apply to those of us in the wedding and the event space? We should be asking these questions too. Because I've noticed that for wedding photographers, videographers, and I think wedding planners, we just kind of have this implicit assumption that, well, the bride has gotten married. She has a bridal train of 15 ladies, and of those 15 ladies, 11 of them are single. So we just kind of assume that when the time comes that they will call us. They might and they might not. So we have to ask expressly when we're done with everything. They say, Ikechukwu, Kemi, thank you very much. We were able to plan your wedding. I'm glad we're able to achieve this and this and that. Were you guys absolutely happy with the service? Oh, okay, so you were. In that case, do you know anyone else who is currently planning their own wedding for 2021? We have interesting discounts or this or this or this on offer, and this is how I think we could help your people. And the answer might be yes. If that's the case, then, by all means, try and get their phone numbers. If the answer is no, you haven't lost anything by asking. And you'll find out that the more you do this over time, you increase your chances of reaching out to warm suspects. Oh, sorry, not suspects. Potential customers, yes. To warm potential customers, because even though it's going to be a cold call, you're going to be a total stranger. But the moment you pick up the phone and say, hello, Undubisi, I got your number from Ikechukwu. I was the wedding planner that you guys hung out with that time during his wedding. Say, yes. I'll be meaning to call you, this, that. And the conversation flows from there. Or, could be the other way around. Oh, Alice, I got your number from Rachel, we're the wedding planner for the wedding. And, of course, immediately that lends some personal credibility and you can take up the conversation from there. So it's a good way to close the call when you're dealing with total strangers. If you're able to achieve your agenda on the call, that's good. But ask. Do you know anyone who might be interested in ... Fill in what your business or your service is. And even if you don't achieve the whole point of the call, you don't get any business from it, or you're not able to make any advancement on what the agenda is for the day, still ask the question. Do you know anyone who might be interested in ... Do you know anyone who is planning a wedding, a naming ceremony, a whatever? Ask those questions at the end of the call. Now, if you keep doing this over time, you're going to find a healthy way of increasing the number of people that you do get to talk to and the potential business that you might get as a result. And so with this, we come to the end of this narrative arc on whether you should talk to strangers. I hope I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that it is indeed a good practice. Do not worry about what kind of personality you have, whether you are reserved, introspective, extroverted, whatever term it is that you want to use, because this is not a matter of your personality. It's a matter of simple, learnable skills and practices that you can do over time. And you'll find that the things that we've been talking about are things that you can do regardless of your personality. Closing the call, asking for anyone who might be interested in ... You can do that whether you're extroverted or introverted. Coming up with an action plan for the call, you can do that regardless of whatever your personality is. In fact, if you're introspective, and you are afraid about reaching out to strangers, coming up with that plan will give you some security and make it easier for you to place the call. So don't worry about your personality. Don't worry about how tall you are or how short. Don't worry about how light-skinned you are or how dark you are. And don't worry about how much money you have or how much money you don't have. These are easy tactics, tips, skills. These are learnable skills that anyone can apply. And you can do so the same, regardless of whatever you think your personal limitations are. So, thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding professional Tavishima Ayide. We will return to our regular scheduled programming on the next recording. Thank you very much for your time and attention, especially for the newbies who joined us on the last episode. You guys stick around and let's grow in this journey together as we learn not only to improve ourselves, but our businesses and the bottom line for 2021. So I will catch you guys on the next recording.